I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zeiss Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark's Biased Reactions, Bestiary 3. Welcome
Hi, everybody.
to Bestiary 3 Biased Reactions.
Mark is so excited about this episode, he didn't even wait until after the intro went up to talk about what it was.
This is what it is. It's Bestiary 3 Biased Reactions. Let's be biased with the very first thing you can be biased for. I mean, we're biased about the cover here and how it has a skeleton troop and two fairies and a clockwork dragon in the background. That clockwork
dragon is awesome.
In a city, which a lot of times these covers are just like kind of vaguely somewhere, but you can really feel like something's going on in the city. Like, what exactly are these things? Are not like the different enemies are not having fun with each other. Like, they're not an allied force. Like, yeah, did the city deploy one of these to defend itself? If so, which one? Because all three seem like a bad option.
They do.
Like, the dragon is burning one of the buildings a little bit, so they probably didn't do that.
I'm thinking
you don't want to deploy tooth fairies. They're just going to... They're awful. Were necromancers deploying the skeleton troops to fight against these threats as like a last-ditch effort? Are they all just like independently marauding the city?
I think the clockwork dragon was a guardian that was accidentally awakened, and that the tooth fairies were the original threat that was attacking, along with some other fae, and necromancer decided to help by summoning a skeleton troop, but they started rampaging out of control, and now the city is just screwed.
Yep.
And that's what activated the Ancient Guardian, was how much.
I think that could be true. If you look at the banners too, like the banner and the shield, and maybe then just my imagination. Let me look at a picture of 2nd edition Valoros. Yeah, isn't it the same sigil that's on 2nd edition Valoros's shield? That's on the skeleton's shield and totally their banner.
Is that a skeletal Valoros?
It wouldn't be, because the other stuff is different, and it's not the same shape. Yeah. But it's the same sigil as from the shield that Valoros is using. So think about that. That it must mean that wherever he got that from, and we know that like he was a mercenary in various different mercenary groups, and didn't he even do a stint for the Aspis Consortium at some point? That's where he got his iconic swords. Unclear if that's where he got his shield as well. It could have been, like, right? Because Aspis is like a type of shield. So, anyway, that is a bunch of biased statements about the cover. There's also the white flags that are they coming off of the dragon?
Yeah, they are.
So, like, there's two different flags.
Isn't that the dragon's wings?
Oh, yeah.
It's the wings.
No, yeah, it's the wings. It's not white flags. That's a good point. And then there's the tooth fairies who are like, look, skeletons are an easy source of teeth.
Teeth, yes.
All right.
All right. Let's move on to the actual contents of the book, shall we?
Okay. Let's start with
the table of contents.
Yes, it's very biased. As you can see, I wasn't making it up. Design leans do say Liz Liddell and Mark Seifter. Liz did most of it, but then she left Paizo, so I cleaned up all the final parts of being the design lead.
And as is typical for a bestiary, you can see that the author list here is ginormous. A lot of people write for our bestiaries.
That's right. There's a huge author list. You could do like a whole poke rap of the author list. Although, if you did, you'd probably butcher at least like 50% of the names.
Same thing with the interior artists. Bestiaries are a great place to bring in a lot of authors and a lot of artists, because you don't have to worry so much about the coordination between one little piece and the other, since monsters are intended to generally be able to stand alone, and then the coordination can be handled by the leads.
Yep.
To make sure that everything all fits together.
Question is, should we do a Poke Rap of the authors
No.
and mispronounce
No,
half of
no,
their
we
names?
should not.
Okay. Let's see what chat thinks. Chat thinks that
Wait, we aren't. But yeah, if populating a single encounter with with an entire bestiary. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Talk about the eternal game session. If you had to try to fight all of the creatures in a bestiary.
there you go. It's just like, yeah, fight them all. You're level 20. You'll win, right? Okay. It looks like Quilipoth would be awful in a Poke Rap.
Yep.
There we are.
Yeah, most of them fighting each other, but yeah, spare a moment for you, the poor GM who's trying to run this encounter. It's like okay, so at 20 initiative we have these 30 monsters. Well,
Well, honestly, the interior artist would
The
be
Dora
even
Div just-
harder to pronounce than the authors.
yeah, the Dora Div just hides because there's a great worm because there is a bone chip that is attacking.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's actually more than just this in the table of contents. This is only the beginning of the table of contents.
It's only the beginning.
I mean,
because
it's most of it, but
a lot of monsters.
yep. See, there's even more contents in the table of contents. You might not have known that when you saw the preview of the table of contents on Paizo Live.
And you can also see the introduction.
It's
here.
basically the same as in other bestiaries, except for the difference is the picture that it has is like a pangolin. So
It's a cute pangolin, though.
yeah, but other than that, it's the same. So I'm less biased about it. Let's
All
go into
Actual
the
creatures.
actual creatures. So Linda, look at the abandoned zealot. What do you think of that? This is your
Let's see,
first
so
time
this is-
seeing an abandoned zealot.
Oh, people who that's a Razmir mask, isn't it?
Well, this particular one is
No, I know. But
once devout followers whose faith proved false. They returned from
Most
the
commonly
doorstep of
associated
the
with the Church of
afterlife after
Razmir.
being denied the eternal reward they expected.
Yup. That's pretty cool to see what happens to the people who are venerating these false deities.
Mm-hmm. And what about the Adlet? They look pretty different than the PF1 version that was just like, this is just someone with a wolf head. I think that this version is more true to Legend than the one that we had before as well. What do you think, Linda?
Let's see. So it's got what are some of the abilities that this guy has?
They've got a wolf storm with a mist that comes out, avenging bite, frozen weapons, pack attack, and wolf rhyme.
Oh, I see. So they have a freezing, chilling bite inside of there.
They can coalesce the cold from the mist around them into a rhyme of frost.
Certainly not someone you want to run into out in a blizzard.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay. Shall we be biased again?
Yes.
Alright, so
What's next?
Agathions!
Silvanchi!
Yes. Now, obviously, the Sylvanchi looks pretty big on this page, but is a tiny creature.
And the Vulpinaw. Yes, it's good to have Agathion, certainly. The friendly, yes, very cute. The neutral good, and the neutral good Celestials from Nirvana, who have animal-like forms.
That's right. And the Sylvanchis are the cats, and they're very similar to in Pathfinder 1st Edition. They've got some lay on hands, they've got some catty abilities, and then the Vulpinaw, just like in Pathfinder 1st Edition, has some spells that it can use and some lay on hands, and they each have an ability that just sort of talks about their animal-like features, just in the same way that the Archons all had like a virtue that were assigned to them, and the Angels all had like a way that they're a messenger that gives them a different aura. Sylvanchi has Cat's Grace, which gives them like a fast mist form.
And Cat's Curiosity as well.
Yes, and Cat's Curiosity too. and hopefully their curiosity won't kill this cat.
That is
And
true.
Volpidon has Fox's cunning, which let them use their knowledge of things to recall knowledge as a free action.
And what's this next one? Procyon Raccoon Agathion. I think this is a new one, isn't it?
Nope, it's from I think like an AP back matter or something. But in that AP back matter, it claimed it was the most commonly encountered on the material plane, which gave it a leg up over some of the other more traditional Agathions, because it's like, well, why not include the one that's the most commonly encountered on the material plane? It still says that here. They kind of mischievous. And
let's see, they've got Raccoon's whimsy.
Yes, they do.
Their pranks always come with a valuable lesson.
Mm-hmm. And they can actually prank you and teach you a valuable lesson, which basically lets them aid you sometime in the next month, just arbitrarily. And they've got some spells and land hands too. And finally, what list of Agathions could be complete without the most powerful Agathions, Draconals, the dragon Agathions.
That guy looks strong.
It's just like, I am a dragon, and I'm wearing this, like, open robe kind of, shirt, so you can see that I still have my dragon pecs.
Yep.
And they've got different colors that are not the same as, not the same at all as what you would expect from chromatic dragons. So, like, black Draconals are fire-based, and so are red. But they are fire, luck, and protection sun, whereas green and white are both cold, but green is nature, water, and white is freedom and repose. And yellow, which is not even a color of a chromatic dragon, is acid, with earth and luck. So that's a thing from Pathfinder 1st Edition too, and they have Dragon's Wisdom, which is the ability that varies by scale color. So they each have something about their animal form, and then all the rest of them are like, hey, Draconal, I just have a thing for you. We're all based on some kind of animal. Which animal are you based on? And the Draconal's like, my favorite animal, dragon.
That's others are like, that doesn't count.
That's not an animal. I'm the strongest. I can say it's an animal. Dragon.
And they look around. It's like, is anyone going to challenge it? And the gods
And then there's
nope.
like a dead neutral good dragon who's here's like, I kind of want to challenge this because I'm not an animal. I'm a dragon. And we're a sapient species and should not be treated the same way as like a cow. No, dragon. Favorite animal. Next. So,
well, it's got plus 37 diplomacy there. I bet he could convince the dragons that no animal would be able to be at the top. So, they chose the form of dragon to represent the majesty of a leader.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, next is the Amalgamite. It's a brand new monster that has...
What the heck is going on with this person?
Teleportation magic can prove a difficult undertaking, and sometimes it doesn't quite work, and you become an Amalgamite.
Ugh. That art, wow.
Amalgamites have a unique feature that no other monster does, because of the fact that they're an amalgam of different creatures, but not really, because of a obvious copy-paste error. They're both rare and uncommon.
Wow. Which one should they be? Do you know?
I think they're supposed to be rare, and
probably,
in the back matter they're listed under rare.
Mm-hmm.
But look!
Wow.
That's even more unique than their destabilizing field that causes you to become sickened by your own body stretching around. Their ability to displace themselves as a reaction where they kind of transpose themselves with another creature. And that other creature takes half the damage from the attack. And then their transposability where they choose to destabilize creatures and kind of switcheroo, or reposition where they just teleport into an occupied space. They're a pain. They're all about teleportation and teleportation mishaps. But Raxaliquid, if they were even more rare, they would be unique.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they were on the rarer end of rare.
And
I mean,
Sarah, that's right. It's definitely a transporter accident episode.
For sure.
Wasn't there, what was it, like, Tuvix or something like that, when, like, in Voyager, Tuvok and Neelix got combined into one person? Although, probably not, it was not, like, an Eldritch Horror.
Yeah, probably not. Not exactly the same, but oof, that hurt.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of creatures of unusual anatomy, here on the facing page, we've got the Amphisbaena.
Yeah, it's true, but the Amphisbaena is kind of a mythical creature, and the way the art makes it look, it's like, yeah, okay, you could have a two-headed snake with one on each end that looks like that. It's not as like wrong looking.
No. Well, I said unusual anatomy.
Yeah, that's true.
It's different. It's not. Speaking of creatures that make me say ugh when I look at the art. But yeah, super aggressive. 2 heads for the price of 1.
Yep, it's an animal that has 2 heads. It will bite you with them. That's what it do.
Next up, we have androids.
Yes.
So we've seen the PC version of androids very recently
That's right.
In Lost Omen Loag.
Yes.
Lost Omen's
now,
ancestry guide.
Most rare ancestries are rare as an ancestry because they're not... ancestries have, like, a kind of a higher bar to be common than a creature. Because, like, anything in the Bestiary is some creature you might find in the woods. And obviously, compared to, like, humans or, like, regular insects... Or, like, even there are some common creatures that are, like, a dog, right? Some things are so common that they are just common everywhere, but the bar for common in a creature also includes, like, yeah, when you go into a desert or a dungeon in the desert, like, this monster is pretty likely to be there, but there's still not that many of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's some rare ancestries that are, like, still not that rare as a creature, or that uncommon ancestries that are common as a creature. But androids are so rare in Golarion because they come from only one place. They're even rare as a creature because they only come from these kind of synthetic devices that came from a crashed ship that are just kind of popping out androids. They're called foundries.
Yes. And you'll recognize some of the nanite surge and emotionally unaware abilities from the android that match up with the android ancestry.
That's right. Well, I mean, the timing was such that it could be they could be looked at in tandem. Yes. Also,
the Angazani.
Angazani. That's right.
From the who once served the Gorilla King.
Mm-hmm. They've got
and are now rampaging rampaging throughout the jungles of the Wangi Expanse.
Yes, they have many arms. They can work well in the same places you might use a Giralon from 3.5 or Pathfinder 1st Edition. They are murderous jungle beasts that love slamming you and pummeling you with a pummeling charge. Can be pretty nasty.
What's that? They do not get along well with what? The comments.
They do not get along well with Pathfinders.
Yes, they do not.
Mm-hmm. I can buy that. So, let's see what's up next.
Next up is
animated objects.
More animated objects.
Yeah, but look at the silverware swarm. That's hilarious.
Yeah, well, animated objects are a really useful broad category of creatures because, I mean, there's a huge variety of objects that could be animated to kill you. Here we have the animated silverware swarm a must-have for your haunted mansion.
Also, if you want to do Beauty and the Beasts attacking the villagers who came there, you need the animated silverware swarm and the animated furnace.
I see a comment there, stick a fork in it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's from Louise. Hi, Louise.
Who also wrote the animated objects. So, there you go. We've got the animated silverware swarm, the animated furnace.
It's got swallow whole, so this thing's just gonna eat you.
Yes.
That's nightmare fuel.
Why not? Why not? Why not eat you?
For sure, for sure.
Animated Trebuchet and animated Colossus.
The siege engine that fires itself, and the animated Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. We've got the low level silverware swarm, and then we've got some higher level creatures.
Also, those Trebuchet and Colossus, I think, are at perfect levels to be summoned that don't have a lot of summon constructs at them. Actually, maybe many of them are.
Animated objects.
The silverware swarm already was at a level that it had some.
Animated objects. Teaching people to fire arrows at random objects that are described in box text since...
Yeah.
Whenever they were first came about.
You know what? Why wouldn't you want to summon an animated Trebuchet that can throw things at a range increment of 120 feet or launch them into the air and trample over everybody? Actually, probably it can't trample because it's summoned, but it still can launch things. The Trebuchet has a design flaw, Philip Ben says. The counterweight can't swing freely below the axis. But since it's animated, it can. Because it can bend animatedly, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. Arboreals! Arboreals.
Ancient guardians of forests.
They're late bloomers.
We have some more options for this category as well.
Ooh, thanks for gifting some
thanks
subs,
for the gift subs, Trippy.
So what are the options here? Now, arboreals that we've had in the past have been good, aligned. But the Arboreal Reaper is neutral. It's not necessarily good. If you look at it, you know, some forests are like...
They focus on the essential decaying phase of a forest life cycle.
Yep. They can leach moisture. Which does a lot of damage. You probably don't want to be inside of their leech moisture effect.
Probably not. And the Arboreal Archives, are they knowledgeable with that name?
They might be. Take a look.
Let's see.
They've got forest lore.
Applies to a huge forest lore applying to their territory.
But they also have Memory Maelstrom and Abeyance Rift. The Memory Maelstrom is like you surge information into people, which can deal damage and usually stuns in an area for at least stun 1. Which is pretty nice.
Oh, I see. So they know all about the forest around them and are wise and revered elders.
That's right. And they have patterned bark, which makes them distinct. They also share the axe vulnerability of other arboreals, and they have the Abeyance Rift. If they die unexpectedly before passing on their knowledge in the usual succession ritual, the knowledge explodes, and then is lost.
And after that, we have the Asuras.
The Asuras.
I remember the Adukites.
So the Shawkeen you might not remember because of the fact that I think they were called like the Tripurasura in Pathfinder 1st Edition, but that name is kind of still used by a widely practicing world religion, whereas Shawkeen is not. So the Shawkeen, every Asura wants to pervert and blaspheme the divine, because they came from a cosmic accident of the gods, and they just don't like the divine. And so Shawkeen are like they disguise themselves as like this eager young pupil who is just like, oh, teach me sensei, but they're actually evil, and they pretend to be a clever student while secretly trying to like screw up their mentor. Basically.
Oh, I see. Ask probing questions that coax their prey into decisions that lead to heresy.
That's correct. That's basically their deal. Whereas the Adukite, which was also a Pathfinder 1st Edition, is like the twin-bodied is a twin-bodied Asura that have two different possible origin stories for how they were created, but they are basically warriors who viciously try to inflict pain on others in their attempt to rail against the divine.
And then we have the, let's see.
The Japalisura.
Japalisuras.
Yes.
What's their deal?
Oh, well, they basically find embarrassing truths from the universe, and they use both lies and prophecies to obscure the truth and corrupt traditional soothsaying. They're basically false prophets. They're false prophets that look like they are some kind of multi-faced creature with bows. They have a veil of lies, and their veil of lies produces infinite arrows that are lies. Which each is going to tear at someone's psyche and deal mental damage, and they can return arrows back at you. They can lie to people with a deception check to try to trick them into thinking someone else is one of their foes, and their faces are very disorienting. And the Nikaramsa is basically lying all the time, but not in the terms of a false prophet, but more so in terms of just kind of humorously undermining things about divine.
Humorous?
Yeah.
I see here's a really pervert miracle to counteract.
They even lie about how large they are because they want you to think that they're really big and more intimidating. But they're actually not. They are only medium, but there's things that say large because that their towering extensibility effectively means that they're large. However, if every creature in their vicinity disbelieves their illusion, they become medium and enfeebled because they are based on like the lie of the fact that they're large.
Philip had said it should have been styled like a lion, so it could have been a lion.
Well, I think that Nikaramsas sometimes lie about the fact that they do look like lions, and in first edition, I think they may have, but here they're kind of more jaguar/tigery. Also, that makes them probably have less of a similarity in their features to like Narasimha, who is one of the avatars of Vishnu. So that's probably a plus because like Vishnu is not an evil Asura divine blasphemy, and jaguar monster is.
Yes.
So
and that's something that we very much look at is whenever creatures are straying too close to real world beliefs.
Well,
in a way that
they should be close if it's supposed to be that real world belief. But if it's not, then you don't want it to just kind of look like something for the real world belief, but be like totally wrong about it as well. All right, so meanwhile, Azurketi, also known as Lo Aslanti, also known as Gillmen. They have hydrokinetic abilities and have been enslaved by the Algolthu.
You can see and you can play them now too in the free web supplement.
That's right. There's a free web supplement because they were supposed to come out in
City of Lost Omens, Absalom City of Lost Omens.
You mean Pathfinder Lost Omens, Absalom City of Lost Omens.
Yes.
Yes. Come on, it's obviously that accurate branding of the name is very easy to remember and pronounce, and everyone it's on the tip of their tongue.
Sometimes we can abbreviate.
Yeah, you could abbreviate it to PLOACOLO.
Sounds like somebody in the middle of a spelling bee who
no,
forgot
consider
where
it is the Lost Pathfinder, Lost Omens, Absalom City of Lost Omens. You missed Absalom. That is actually probably the most important word in the title. And then there's the Azer that we were talking about earlier in the episode during the pre-show. So if you're watching this at YouTube, you're like, that you weren't talking about the Azer. No, we weren't. That you can know. Azers are kind of fiery dwarves, right? And they're from the elemental plane of fire. So that's pretty cool. They have the heat of the forge and burning touch, and they can scorch things.
I see a theme here.
Oh? What is the theme? Fire? There's a lot of information about them and their values and what happened with them and how they were enslaved by the Ifriti. And there's a lot of situations with Azers.
And then we make it to the letter B.
We made it to the letter B!
What?
Whoa!
What is Bobble Beast?
Bobble Beast is a new creature that Logan just made up. And it's kind of hilarious.
Creates imitation jewelry in its digestive system and puts an enchantment on them.
It puts an enchantment on the fake jewelry that compels you to fetch your real valuables and deliver them to the Bobble Beast.
Wow, I can only imagine what a Bobble Beast horde would look like.
And also, look at the sidebar about their swap meets.
They come together to meet in groups of up to a dozen to share techniques and show off real jewelry they've acquired.
They even try to infect one another with their respective skin conditions, as one beast might have sapphire warts and another emerald blotches. The hosts show off their wealth by catering expensive meals or lavish invitations. Side quest masquerading as a monster, says Kyle from Archives of Nethys.
Certainly a creature that can help inspire adventures.
And then there's the Baycock.
Arrow of Despair.
That's another one that is from mythology, and like, it was not as far off from mythology in Pathfinder First Edition, but the new art and abilities are a little bit closer to the original mythology of the Baycock. Yeah, they've got Arrow of Despair. They can devour life, wasting curse.
These guys are nasty.
Banished from the ground. They are pretty nasty. They're undead.
Speaking of undead, beheaded.
Beheaded.
Severed heads and flaming skulls. Reanimated heads of decapitated victims.
That's right. There's severed heads and flaming skulls. Why? And there's special beheaded abilities. So you could have a fiendish flaming skull or a bleeding severed head. Why not?
There you go. And
Cal, you're upset there's not a swarm of heads or skulls? Let us continue.
Yes.
Actually, we probably won't make it to that in this version of the episode, but there is one. There is a
what's
swarm of skulls.
What's the story of Beto
Beto-san?
Yeah.
It's a yokai from it's a yokai from Japanese legend of just like this creature that, you know, it's not really going to attack you. It's just like you hear like the clack of Geta on the ground, and you're like, what? And you can't really see anything, and it's Beto-san, so you're supposed to kind of step to the side and it'll pass you by. If you give it a verbal offer to pass you by.
Ominous footsteps ability.
Mm-hmm.
Footsteps seem to draw ever closer, but the source remains difficult to pinpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, like, it's not evil. It's not planning to attack you. It just...
says, unfortunately, they lack understanding of how this behavior could frighten others.
Yep.
They don't attack those they follow, but they often end up in combat because their unwelcome behavior causes them to follow to attack.
People think that they're a stalker or something. They're not going to attack you, but you might attack them because you're becoming frightened and They're just real. It's really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of obnoxious abilities, such as Shadow Step, where when they're revealed, they, as a reaction, go to the shadow plane and go to a place where they are not revealed, and Stepping Decoy, where they create illusory decoys of sound so that you can't just use the fact that their footsteps are easy to hear to figure out where they are. Also, while they're not necessarily, like, trying to, like, feed on fear, they do have a good sense of where frightened creatures are.
Mm-hmm. So if you do attack them, and if you, yeah.
And, I mean, they do have an appetite for fear as well. But they're not necessarily... Yeah, they're not necessarily trying to,
They're not trying to attack people.
To attack you. No, but it says later on that it says their lack of understanding how this behavior can frighten others. So, it looks like many yokai, that there's sort of, like, some contradictions in there on purpose so that you don't really know what
their deal is. Yeah, that makes sense.
The true truth of the Beto Beto San is. There's also...
Bison.
Bison! M. Bison.
And, whoa, what's this thing? Blood
What's
painter?
that thing? It's a blood painter, Linda.
Speaking of creepy art.
The prevailing theory insists the first arose from the overzealous Shelonites so devoted to their art they ceased eating and sleeping and transformed to aberrations. Although there's mysterious origins, and so people don't know exactly what's going on. So yeah, they are blood painters, and they can paint. They dab some blood from something with bleed damage, and then they use that to paint and create all sorts of illusions.
Are these guys new?
They're new.
Creepy.
But one thing that is true is they're easily fascinated. So bring your color spray. Because you can use first level color spray on them, and they don't get the benefits of the incapacitation trait to protect them. So if this is your boss encounter, your level 6, go for the visual incapacitations, because they're fascinated by colors.
Stuff
and
like that
things.
is definitely like, why do you want to spend the actions on recall knowledge during combat? This is why.
Could be useful. Plus, you know, Bison over there, we just kind of said it's a Bison, but, like, they've got a Rolling Thunder ability where they kick up dust and, like, charge in a stampeding way, but also they can spend the actions and wait, and then other Bison use it, and then they just all go. Kind of like when the giant wildebeests in The Lion King, they killed Mufasa.
Yeah.
And it is in parallel lines, and it deals additional damage, and is in a huge area. Sydney Warlock says, why would you spend actions to recall knowledge? You can be a Vulpinol and recall knowledge at the beginning of your turn before you take any other actions every turn. That's true.
I think that's past the, I think Lion King is past the spoiler statute of limitations.
Yes, well, we can also spoil the inspiration for Lion King and say that, in fact, Hamlet's father also dies.
What?
Yes, before the play actually started. Spoilers! The ghost of his father that he encounters is his father's ghost. What? Yeah. I know, full spoilers. Bone Ship! It's a 2-pager! I mean, it would have to be for a bone ship. Talks about evil deities that might make a bone ship. Piloting a bone ship if you're just like, you know, I am commandeering this bone ship. I've intimidated it. I didn't destroy it. And now it's my bone ship.
Or the PCs are being attacked by a bone ship crewed by powerful undead.
That's true. You could have like a grave knight who is like, this is my bone ship. And it's got a skeleton crew. It has a gluttonous appetite for death and destruction. And it's very, very dangerous.
It can bind souls to turn them into its crew.
Yeah, of course. Why would it not be able to do that? can scavenge bones from the sea to get all of its hit points back, but it does take a day of downtime. Got a wake of blood that follows after it. If you wind up entering the water, you see visions of drowning.
Keel Haul as Trample, but it swims up to double its speed, and everybody who fails to save is dragged under the ship.
Yep.
Oof.
Yep. It can call for new crew with the Wail of the Banshee.
And it's a chain of bones. It's a chain shot.
Yep. And it's got the ability to press gang souls.
Yeah, this guy definitely feels like an 18th level creature.
Yep. There's also famous bone ships, such as Captain Astor's Eulogy. Cal is wondering if there's enough information for it to be a vehicle in Archives of Nethys. Sort of. It doesn't have like a price because it's still a living undead. Unliving undead that you're crewing. So some of the entries wouldn't be in there. So you'd probably have to mark it as like very weird compared to the other vehicles. But it has most of the stuff you'd have for a vehicle.
Shall we continue with more nightmare creatures?
Boar worms! Boar worms.
Hit a giant swarm of horrible worms, or there could be the Empress of the boar worms.
And there's variants: the ice worms, the lava worms, the necrol worms, and the mage eater worms. So many worms.
Ugh.
So little
Gross.
time. Then the swarm of the worms can do swarming bites, and the Empress worm has a viviparous birth. When you kill her, she violently expels all of her current young and makes a boar worm swarm. And every creature within 20 feet takes a bunch of acid damage, and like, and the swarm comes out.
Gross. Gross.
Plus hydrophobia. Water is their weakness. They, you can see, they have weakness water, like a lot. So you can actually just like water elemental stuff, like a water elemental sorcerer is really good. An actual water elemental, or even that cleric spell that just makes rain fall for a minute in the area does like 10 damage per round to an Empress boar worm. They do not like it. They do not.
Let's move on from this gross picture to
Brainchild.
Ooh.
Another of Logan's children.
What's the deal with the Brainchild?
So basically, the deal with the Brainchild is that it's kind of like a creature from either Paranoia Agent or Inspector anime, where or maybe a Tulpa in some ways. It's only here because of the fact that there's an urban legend about it being here, and it has abilities that are based off of what ability people think that it has.
Oh, I see. So it's based on the reputation mindless creatures are completely immune. The size, features, the items, and appearance of their attack match what foes perceive. Oh,
Yep.
That's really cool.
So, if at any point no creature perceiving the Brainchild believes in the ability, it doesn't have the ability. Like, frightful, if people are like, it has a frightful fear, and
Then it
anyone who's facing it thinks it has that, then it has it. But also, if the urban legend says that it has a weakness, it actually does gain a weakness. And
so it has a lot of motivation to work to cultivate its legend carefully.
It definitely does. Although it sort of is the living rumor, and it's not necessarily. It doesn't say here necessarily that it may not be aware of exactly its relation to the urban legend.
That makes sense. I see here, there's GM advice for how to handle these, like putting in rumors and making sure that there aren't too many because it would get too powerful if they believes them up.
See, it says a simple drive to stalk, terrify, and kill propels them.
Oh, makes sense.
So they don't necessarily have the self-awareness to realize they should be spreading rumors that don't give them a weakness.
I'm sure that a Brainchild working together with some other nefarious villain who was going around and spreading rumors about them would be...
Yep. I mean, yeah. That's basically how those anime go. persistence of memory means that if anybody still fully believes it exists, not just like, oh yeah, I've heard of that, it probably is real, it appears within 100 feet of them within 2 to 4 days. So you can only destroy it by completely convincing people that it's not real or that it had been killed.
Yeah.
You have to convince everyone.
That seems really tricky.
Yeah. They're kind of like a living phantasmal killer in some way. And they also have phantasmal killer, which resembles them rather than your actual greatest fear. So, yeah, it's kind of fun. Their damage is actually all mental because they're an illusion. They even have the illusion and mental traits.
Oh, wow.
That's part of why, if you're mindless, you're immune to the brain child. Most monsters do not have the illusion and mental traits.
That is true. That is true. And what is a buso? I don't think I've seen these guys.
They are from mythology as well. And so the buso here, as you can see, can like resize plants because it's a buso farmer. They're evil tree dwellers that want to consume flesh, and they are from. They're from folklore. I want to say they might be from Filipino folklore. I think that's right. But I get mixed around because there are a lot of different ones in here, and I'm not as familiar with them as other things, but I think they're Filipino. Cool. And they've got one eye, and they really, really, really want to eat humanoids.
Their bodies reject non-humanoid meat since it provides them no nutritional value. So
and they find it repulsive. So they kind of have to eat humanoids.
It's creepy.
Yep.
This is a creepy spread.
Yeah, well, a lot of things can be creepy when you've got monsters.
That is true.
Okay, what about Caligny? We've got the Caligny Vanguard, which, the Caligny Vanguard are born without eyes, which is pretty rare and sacred among Caligny. They have no vision, but they use echolocation entirely to, as their precise sense. They're more lawful than other Caligny. They generally don't rebel against their duties that they're given, and they are kind of like champions among the Caligny.
Their armor is fused into their body in places too.
Linda, that time that we were doing Cradle of Night playtest for the APG, these were like the heavily armored ones that you guys had to fight.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
I mean, these stats didn't exist yet at the time, but you know.
But the story, yeah.
Yes, story-wise, and they're actually rare, whereas most other types of Caligny are not as rare. But it's literally said in their stat entry, an extremely rare occurrence.
Yes, that better be rare in that case.
Yes. Then there's Caligny Callers, who are connected to the Forsaken, the mysterious demigod that disappeared. And the Obes, the evil prophet beings of the Shadow Plane.
A pact to call upon them.
Yeah, Obed Pact. Yeah. Hey, it's an uncommon ritual. And unlike like Abyssal Pact, where you have to be a demon, anybody can cast Obed Pact.
But only Caligny Callers could use it with relative safety.
If a different type of Caligny attempts the ritual, they use an outcome 1 degree of success worse than the result.
If a non-Caligny attempts it, you automatically critically fail.
Yeah, but your elf can cast Obed Pact. If you want to conjure an Obed that deems you unworthy, it siphons away your soul energy, making you doomed too.
There are better life decisions. I'm just gonna say.
I mean, maybe you wanted to be doomed too.
Probably not.
Okay. They've also, Caligny Caller have a Death Umbra, which is more shadowy than the other death abilities of other Caligny. They've got their Obed Pact, and they've got sort of more magical abilities.
Nice.
They look pretty cool, too. Alright, let's see.
Calicangs look pretty cool, also.
Calicangs.
So let's see what their deal is.
They,
oh yeah, they have like they're tied to all sorts of different elements.
They've got some elemental stuff, but they basically like they're humanoids who just stand around in suspended animation, like in a vault somewhere. Like I think you ran one in Council of Thieves in PF1. Then they just sit there for a while in suspended animation until someone comes there. And then they come out of suspended animation and attack with their 6 weapons and with their ability to convert energy they're hit by, especially electricity. They can absorb it and heal themselves and recharge their breath weapon. And then
they can breath weapon at any element they want, which is super useful.
It's very dangerous for the PCs if you have multiple of them and they're using electricity.
Yes.
Because they can hit each other with the electricity. It might not.
Calican can't absorb their own spells this way.
Yeah, they can't absorb their own spells, and also it's spells specifically. So, they can't just use their breath weapon to do that. But it would be funny, and they're still immune to electricity.
Yeah.
So they can still at least pull it into each other.
Possibly an army of them.
There are a lot of multi-armed critters, Philip. But Camel does not have any arms, so...
That's true.
There you go. So a lot of them have 0 arms.
Well adapted to heat.
That's right.
And subsist without needing to attempt survival checks. Yes, very good for desert survival.
They've got Spit and Sandstrider. And now, this. The first of the troops, Hell Knight Cavalry Brigade. The troops each have their own deal, but basically, as you can see here, there's like a hit point threshold for 16 squares, 12 squares, and 8 squares, whereas you keep fighting them, you kill off more and more of the troops. There were all sorts of intermediate versions, as we mentioned on the Paizo live stream a few weeks ago, that happened. Like, Linda participated in playtests that involved, like, attacking each square separately, and that just did not work.
Yeah.
But this final version is a good compromise between realistically feeling like something's happening and that you're actually fighting a large group of people without it being a pain in the butt. Because like in Pathfinder First Edition troops did not feel like you were fighting a large number of people at all. As someone who has fought against them and has run them, it was just like, no, there's a lot of things supposedly, and they're all fine, and then they're 1 hit point and they're fine, and then you do 1 damage and they all disperse immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can see here they get smaller and smaller. It makes their arrow volley get reduced in its radius when they don't have enough people to get the 10-foot radius. They've got a lance charge. They've got a swing from the saddle ability and their trailblazing stride. Plus, troop movement is the big deal with the troops, where they gather up into a sort of 20 by 20 area and then move. Where do they put their lance when they fire their bow, is the question. Well, obviously they're gonna have to, like, put it... Where do most people put their lance when they're firing their bow? I guess there's, like, alongside the horse, on the side that you can't see, there might be a holster?
Maybe.
What about Cicalia? Poor unfortunate souls.
Yes, indeed. This looks like they can hurl nuts and unleash a cloud of ink.
Unleash the ink cloud. Yep, they're level 5... amphibious humanoid with the lost empire within the depths of the Embarrel Ocean. And they also coexist alongside Lokotha in the city of Jidao. Who doesn't like an octopus person?
There you go.
Okay.
To populate your underwater cities and nations in Tiansha.
That's right.
All right, let's see what else have we got here. We've got some sort of horrifying worm thing. Chazaidu? Chizaidu. Chizaidu.
Dominion of the Black Gargantuan Worm thing. I mean, level 10's pretty low for a Gargantuan Dominion of the Black Worm thing. It's some kind of Dominion of the Black, and they kind of were being consumed by the Dominion of the Black, and they were like, let's team up! Thanks for consuming our home world! There's more purpose. And now they're kind of priests of the Dominion.
And they are very hungry creatures here, for sure.
They have ecstasy from their hunger.
Yes. Creepy.
And they can make you hungry too, and flat-footed, or spend actions eating or drinking, including dangerous things. Dangerous things. Plus, they wear an eerie alien layer of shimmering violet mucus that slithers and crawls over their flesh as a vestment.
Gross.
They've got their priestly spells, which are actually divine, and they like to swallow you whole. Fun times.
Don't want to run across them.
That's really, actually, if you think about it, that's a lot of stuff for a level 10 creature. It actually is both gargantuan and has like an obnoxious aura, and has like 5th level prepared spells.
Yeah, this guy's got a lot
including
going on.
a lot of harms. It's got like all of clericness, so
yeah,
it's pretty intense.
It is pretty intense.
What about city guards?
City guards, something you are going to encounter quite a bit. What happens when the guards get called on the PCs? Answer to that question.
They send a squadron of city guards, which can fire crossbows or lower halberds. And they're urban chasers, so they know how to get crowds to let them through. Clockworks.
And clockworks. Well, something that's been like, oh yeah, we want to have the rules for clockworks for a while, and now we do. Little clockwork spies. So cute.
You can wind up clockworks, and there's a clockwork spy that can record audio and self-destruct in case you don't want people to know what audio they're recording if they catch the spy. You've got clockwork soldiers here. They've got their halberd. They can activate their defenses, which make their external plates kind of extend out, and gives them more armor class.
I'm noticing a very unusual weakness here. Weakness to orichalcum.
That's right. Well, clockworks, they have gears that work kind of like a clock, and orichalcum has strange time properties. Now, if you are fighting a level -1 clockwork spy and you're like, well, don't worry, I'll use my orichalcum weapon, then I don't even know what's going on in your game, but send me a private message or something for why or how that actually happened. But, and also to be like, but at least it does 2 extra damage, because that made the difference of whether I could kill this 8 hit point
level
but
it
creature.
Makes sense if you're going to have it in the higher levels.
It should be on all of them.
It should be on all of them, yeah.
Yeah. Also, orichalcum is especially good against the higher level ones, because most of them have resistance physical, except adamantine or orichalcum at higher levels. So, orichalcum on a clockwork, starting from the soldier, is one of those rare situations of double dip, which in the Pathfinder playtest there were some double dip monsters.
But where you both bypass resistance,
you both bypass resistance and hit a weakness at the same time. So they're kind of weak 10 to orichalcum if you think about it. The clockwork soldiers instead of 5. They're also weak 5 to electricity. So if you have an orichalcum shock weapon, you do 15 more damage than you would have done with like a regular not shock weapon, like a regular flaming weapon.
Nice. And here we have more clockworks. As we knew from the cover, there would definitely be a clockwork dragon.
Plus the clockwork mage that was shown on Paizo Live. And also somewhat previewed in the blog, where there was a divine servitor of of bride that was a clockwork mage with the divine servant, or whatever it was, template applied upon it.
Oh, that's interesting. There's a malfunction sidebar for different malfunctions that you can add if the clockworks gets crit or is in disrepair.
Yep. Backfire, damage propulsion, loose screws, and the clockwork mages have clockwork wands that are sort of like the focus of all their magic energy built into their chest. It can use a bunch of arcane innate spells. They can energize their wand once every 10 minutes to regain a spell by spending time from its time for that day. So it's pretty handy. As a creature, it's got even more weakness to electricity and orichalcum, and then when you get to the clockwork dragon, well, it's kind of made of with adamantine on the outside. It's got sort of the gold plating, but there's a lot of adamantine in there. So it's got adamantine jaws and claws, self-destruct mechanism. Weakness to orichalcum goes up real high. So, like, at the point you're fighting the clockwork dragon, if you have an orichalcum shock weapon, which you still, like, I don't think you do, but if you do, it's a 45-point damage swing over a regular weapon. But you could still get 15 of that with using electricity at all.
Ooh, their breath weapon deals is burning oil.
Burning oil. They've got Draconic Frenzy just like real non-clockwork dragons, and their spearing tail can spear you in a line and do persistent bleed. So Yossarian says, do you have to wind them up? So if you, we saw it on the spread with the the page with the clockwork spy, but there's rules for winding up clockworks. For clockwork to act, it must be wound with a unique key by another creature, which takes a minute. Remains wound for 24 hours, although many of them can go on standby, which does not deplete their time. Some of their abilities require using some of their remaining time, and if it doesn't say otherwise, they are often wound at a particular time each day, maybe 8 a.m. So that is the deal with them. You can also use Disable Device to make them lose hours of operation time, so even if they're in standby mode.
So that's another way to fight them. That's it.
Yes.
Really interesting.
If you're having trouble, but like it's a completely separate track from hit points, so just be forewarned that it's not actually helping the rest of your team to do that unless.
But a team could decide we're going to use disabling as our way to get
unless you focus on it, or it's so low on its remaining hours, and you're pretty sure about that because you like fight it just before it was going to get rewound. That you know you only need a few.
Or you're trying to do like a chasing game with this clockwork. And take shelter and unwind it a little bit and then try to run away.
And I mean, you could just have one rogue who's disabling it. As long as the party decides that's what's happening, it doesn't waste any actions attacking its hit points. If you think that disable is going to finish it off first. In that case, you can have the rest of the party members kiting, healing the rogue. Just making sure that the dragon doesn't have good positioning, because all that hit point damage you're doing is useless. Similarly, if you're beating it with hit point damage, the unwinding is not useful. So you just have to think about that when you're fighting something on parallel tracks.
For sure.
Ooh. Alright, thanks for gifting another sub, Trippy. Alright, so we've got the Clockwork Dragon.
And then after that, we have the Cobblemites.
Yes, and little Cobblemites.
Yes, which, the Cobble Swarm, which showed up in a recent Pathfinder bounty.
That's right. Well, Cobblemites are so small and so, kind of small and harmless that the regular Cobblemite is not even in here as a creature. But they do have swarms, and they do have, Sturstormers, which are dangerous living landslides formed of cohesive swarms.
And there's little rules in the sidebar here for having a Cobblemite as a familiar, which just must have the burrow familiar ability. So I wonder how much of this was inspired by like the idea of having a pet rock.
I mean, they're not exactly a rock.
I know they're not exactly a rock, but they resemble square stones. So it's kind of feels like this might have been inspired by pet rocks.
It might have been. Kitsune also have a pet rock. I wonder if there's like a picture of one Cobblemite somewhere. I guess they're these.
That's from the bounty that are
From the bounty, yeah,
yeah.
that have the little geode
little
mouth on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're cobble mites. They can do grasping bites and pummeling assault. And the 19th level Sturstrommer can create earthquakes, and close up fissures, and pummel you. And it's not pretty.
Yeah.
It's not pretty.
Don't let them all gather together like that.
Plus, for more weird crystalline / earth
creatures,
like you thought, okay, Mark, this spread had two things that were both had the earth and swarm traits. Surely the next page has the earth and swarm trait.
Yes.
Consonite
with
choir.
Resonant chimes that deal you sonic damage.
They have echolocation. They are crystalline. Their choir songs go loud and complex. Their colonies shake loose, and they because they start as crystals are just on the wall, and then they can explore the plane of Earth because they like to.
Oh, I see. So they naturally form on the plane of Earth, and then they group together into choirs.
They like to explore. They're very curious. They can sometimes be coerced to perform by like shaitan genies. They hunt down the hated Zordons who like to eat crystals. Especially their immobile brethren who have not shaken themselves off the wall yet. And they sometimes go through portals. And they really like the open spaces in other planes.
But they need to go back to the plane of Earth, at least sometimes, to replenish their lost numbers.
Because otherwise they can't, basically. But they like wind, and because there's not really winds, high winds to chime among them in the plane of Earth. So
these seem like creatures that people in our home group would definitely want to befriend.
You can. You can. They speak the language Terran. So you could do it. They've got swarming chimes. The resonant chime ability is interesting. Any creature that begins its turn in their aura deals an additional 2d6 sonic damage on any strike using a weapon. That includes their enemies of the consonant choir.
They can't control the sound that precisely.
Yep. It's just resonant, and other things do more sonic damage. Speaking of befriending creatures,
Coral Capuchin.
It's the Coral Capuchin.
Oh, it's a friend.
Like Farusa from Skull and Shackles, Linda's Adventure Skull and Shackles.
So I see they're still extremely curious.
Yep. Insatiably so. Still have their moisture dependency.
And I might have a tendency to pilfer things.
Their little Capuchin's curse. They certainly like pilfering their own little trinkets. They live under a single matriarch who might even possess divine powers. They have little nests with valuables. It's Coral Capuchin.
Yeah. And we got here on the facing page, Corrupted Relics.
Corrupted Relic. It's haunted. You can see that there's a relic, and the relic is a different color, because, like, it's not an incorporeal ghostly image of that relic. It's an actual relic.
Yes.
That is corrupted. It has a ghost. So, basically, the relic is pristine, but there's the spirit that is coming around the haunted relic. And if you want to get rid of it, you could destroy the relic. But if you manage to destroy the spirit without destroying the relic, you might be able to get a relic.
Yeah.
This is not just like relic as in, oh, that's a word for an item. Then, like, it can actually be
a relic. Yes. Just don't let yourself treasure the corrupted relic, the relic too much, lest you become a corrupted relic in turn.
Yeah, that could easily happen. Could be a serious issue. Especially since adventurers die a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Sudden manifestation. The relic can just manifest. And the amulet relic ability means that it can't take any actions on its own except for to manifest the spirit, essentially.
The spirit is what's going to be attacking you.
Oh, yes, certainly. Next up,
what's hopefully not going to be attacking you are our coatls.
yes, Mish Coatls probably won't, because they like to guide fledgling societies with farming techniques, medicinal expertise, or more esoteric skills like the arcane arts.
And we have shoe coatls here, dedicated to seeking out malevolent creatures and offering them a final opportunity at redemption.
Yep. So they might be attacking you, the shoot Coatl. Also, Quaddles don't like Sakiel, because Sakiel want to just scare you into being so depressed and afraid and full of anxiety that you just don't do anything. And Quaddles want you to do something.
Yeah.
Go out there and do something awesome. There are Quaddle deities mentioned here, like Tolte Quaddle and Shihua Quaddle, maybe. So Coatls are super cool. They look awesome. Like look at that. Look at the starry pattern on the Mish Coatl. It can wrap you up in coils. It can give you a gift of knowledge, and you just gain like a lore skill permanently from the Coatl. It's got venom that deals good damage rather than poison damage to fiends. Take that, fiends. And it's got the Star Child, where it's hard to discern against starry skies because it is like made of star, or it has a star pattern on it. And then the Shoe Coatl has occult spells, like a breath attack, the Instrument of Retribution, where it basically turns itself into this powerful weapon to give itself to your character or some other good aligned creature. That keeps its like telepathy and certain other abilities. And it's still got venom that does good damage to fiends, wrap you on up. So, yeah, they're pretty cool. They all have different ways they can help you, each different than the last.
And they have a toad, because they want
do.
people to
Why
toad.
wouldn't they have a toad?
Naturally, yes.
All right.
Alrighty, so we've got some giant enemy crab swarm and another giant enemy crab. This one is a giant hermit crab. Looks like it does not have the weakness to prone.
Yes, it does not, because it's a hermit crab.
Yes.
Not of the one from B2 where you flip it on its back
for
massive damage.
Yes.
But yeah, the hermit crab swarm and the giant hermit crab, they've got swarming snips, and the giant hermit crab has the ability to retract into its shell to protect itself and gain a large bonus to AC, losing its bludgeoning weakness to be crushed by hammers, and gaining resistance to piercing and slashing damage. However, it can only use Protective Pinch when it's in the retract or an interact action to come out of its shell. So it can't actually attack you without spending another action to get out. So if it wants to constantly be hiding in its shell, it has to do a routine of like interact to come out, which triggers some reactions.
Yeah.
Attack you,
and
then retract into its shell. You can also grab and constrict
I
if
do
it's
like
not
it looks
afraid.
like it's got a boat as
Yeah, why not?
shell,
It's a giant hermit crab.
Yeah.
It can do what it wants. So, yeah, hermit crabs have an interesting thing where they kind of, the swarms, the way that they gather is they're always looking for replacements. And so, like, when one crab finds a really nice shell, it switches to the new shell. Like, other crabs will queue up to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go into that one shell. Oh, well, I'm going to go into that one shell if they each consider it to be an upgrade. And basically, that... So, when one hermit crab is not quite big enough for a new one, they're like, I know that someone's going to want that shell. And so they kind of wait for another one to come there. And that's kind of how that's how they amass. And they get really mad if somebody interrupts that.
When they're doing that, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Is this a new creature here, the Crossroads Guardian?
Yes. It's kind of like the Lady of the Lake type scenario where there's a problem. The village is threatened by bandits, but no one's here to help. A divine relic must be guarded by the last monk, but they're on their deathbed. The world can only be saved by this magic, artifact that no one knows. So, primal nature responds by creating the Crossroads Guardian. So it's kind of like created by Leshy spirits, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It just sort of arises. It's a naturally occurring entity of primal magic. They exist to satisfy a particular quest.
It says some are martial, but most are helpers or assistants, guiding heroes through the wilderness to where they're needed. So basically, built-in quest seeds right here.
At 7th level, they're usually not high enough level to like just do it all themselves, and they're bound to the site of their creation, but can leave alongside somebody who is doing their quest.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't be permanently destroyed while their need and their quest is still around. And
once the need is fulfilled, they dissipate naturally within 1 week unless they find a new quest. So yeah, it really is like those nature spirits that can come and go from different forms.
That's right. They can recognize heroes where they know your name and lineage and history.
If that individual has 2 or more identities, the Crossroads Guardian knows all those identities and which one is most true. I imagine some secretive PCs will be like, oh, let's stay away from these.
Yes, and they can cast Geas without secondary casters and can target a willing creature of any level with the Geas. They can even plane shift. They've got a lot going on. But
Quest? Those are cool.
Yep. So, do you think now is a good time to stop before we go into the D?
Into the Ds, I just checked. Yeah, the next page is demons. So
yes.
Let's stop.
Which means there are no demons in the book.
That's true. Yeah. D is always a long letter.
D is for demon. That's
D.
good enough for me.
D is for demon and devil and div and
divine
warden and dragons. And more dragons. There's a lot of dragons.
Dramophere.
I don't know what those are. We'll
Duende.
Figure that out next
and
time.
a Dybbuk, too. So there's always a lot of these.
All right. So why don't we go ahead and say goodbye to YouTube here?
All right. Bye, YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.